And welcome back to the Stan Simpson Show. We are talking about the legacy of the great Whitney Houston. And if there is an heir apparent, DJ Buck, Linda Reynolds, Eric Danton. All right, so there's a whole bunch of up-and-coming stars who are in the mix. There's only one Whitney, right? What made her so special, that voice. Yeah. But a bunch of folks who we can talk about. Let's start with Adele first. Let's look at her and tell me, does she have the makings? Does she have the goods?
It's early now
for her, I'd say. But she could. But it's early.
She's only released 2 albums. The new album is her second.
Right.
Sales-wise, maybe. I mean, this thing sold 8 million copies or something already.
Right. But you can look at the big picture with Whitney. It was more than just sales.
Right.
She had the box office score. She had major hits, big records. You know, if you got to take all that and put it into one person who can take Whitney's place. For me, it's only one person. I would say Beyonce.
Oh, interesting.
Because if you was the author and you was to write a story about a young girl coming up, thrown into stardom at a young age, to sell millions of records, to do movies, that's Whitney, that's Beyonce.
So the 3 elements, and to be a major star, to be a Whitney, you need what? 1, 2, and 3. You need to have what? Break it down for me.
Sales, and you got to be international, not just in the States. You have to be worldwide, recognizable. You have to be known and have the hits and just the personality to do anything and everything.
But to get those sales, obviously you have to be able to sing. What elements do you need to get those kind of sales? What made Whitney so special? Besides that great voice, there was more than a voice, right? No? Or was it all voice?
No. Well, she had everything. She had voice, she had looks, she could act.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we were discussing this earlier. My pick is Jennifer Hudson for the voice.
For the voice, yeah.
But
she can
Beyonce,
act too now, right?
True. But Beyonce for sales. And she's internationally known.
Mm-hmm.
So.
The acting is a big component of this, though, right?
True.
The acting is another part that puts you on that superstar level.
Yeah.
True.
It puts you in other households that sometimes the music can't get into households. And when you get into certain households, you become this household name where from kids. Whitney died. My granddaughter knows who Whitney is. She's 5.
But a lot of kids know Whitney from the Bobby Brown reality series.
Yeah, true. And that's the thing that they'll remember. Yeah, it's good and bad. Yeah.
All right, so pick one, then we'll go some other stars in. So if you were to say who the next Whitney is, the next heir apparent, Buck, you're saying?
I'm saying Beyonce, longevity-wise, Beyonce.
Yeah. Linda?
I have to go with Beyonce, even though I want Jennifer Hudson.
Eric?
I think Beyonce, too. I mean, culture has changed a lot since Whitney came up in the mid-'80s. You know, there's so much more out there, and everything has gotten fractured, and it's all niche now. Everything is there's not the monoculture that there was, and Whitney and people like Michael Jackson were perfect for that because they reached everybody. And if anyone now is going to do that, I think it's going to be Beyonce.
To the Jay-Z connection, obviously that helps, right, as far as marketing and getting those sales you talked about.
And one big thing that the average person doesn't see is the machine behind the person. Yeah. Whitney had a machine behind her, and that was Clive Davis. It was a big machine.
Yeah.
And record business was done different back then.
Right.
There's so many ways to get records played. There's YouTube, so many outlets right now. You have so many avenues to get these records out. Back then, it was the record stores.
He's the rainmaker, right, Clive Davis. But you also had the inner circle of Aretha Franklin and Dionne Warwick. So you had an extraordinary inner circle and then a rainmaker, and her mom, right, she's Houston, right? So she had brains, looks, beauty, could act, a great inner circle, and the great rainmaker. I mean, she had it all, right, just about.
Had it all.
I mean, she was a star, but she was a star who was made.
Right. Right, that's a good point you're making, because some stars are made where they're not really that talented, right?
Right.
True.
Whitney was, but she still had that machinery behind her, and the machinery has changed, like Buck was saying. It's a different game now. And
she didn't resort to being overly sexy or provocative in order to create sales. Some entertainers out there try to be overly provocative in order to create those sales. She never had to do that.
She was also known as being wholesome.
For a while, right?
Yes, well,
which is why I was
until the Bobby Brown.
Right. So what do you attribute that to? Because, she was from Newark, and a lot of folks said that Bobby Brown simply brought out the real Whitney, that everything before that was packaging, and all Bobby did was bring out the girl from Newark, the homegirl from Newark.
I'm trying to remember if it was the Temptations who spoke about Whitney, and they basically said, she's from the hood.
Right, round the way.
Okay,
right.
This was a long time ago,
right.
So I kind of think that we knew she was from Jersey.
Right.
And she was from the hood.
Right. So actually you can say they did a pretty good job marketing her as this good girl, but at heart she was a street girl, right? Interesting.
I think I agree with that to an extent,
okay.
But I think Bobby was an enabler, too.
Okay.
I think Bobby whatever it was about him brought out that insecurity in her, and then he helped her fill that void, or try to fill that void with him and with the drugs and whatever. You know, she came from, New York's a rough town. She came from a rough town, but I think
Have a vacation.
I think she had help becoming a rough lady.
Interesting, because she also grew up in a very, you had a church family. She grew up in, so she had that inner circle. So even though she had some hood in her, she had a lot of values too from her mom and the church. So it was an interesting dichotomy of the street girl, itching to come out, and the girl who was raised the right way, so to speak, right?
And there was one person who could bring it out, Bobby.
Yeah.
You all want a bad boy. Bobby was on the top of his game back. When he was huge.
Right.
The king of R&B is what they said.
And truth be told, women like those bad boys, Linda, right? Women like the bad boys.
Some.
Right?
Some do.
Now, why is that?
I don't know. I can't.
You do know. Come on, man. You do know. Why do most women like those bad boys? They grow up in the church, and that bad boy comes in, and there's something appealing about those bad boys. Tell us now. You're on the air. 30 seconds left. What is it about bad boys that good girls like Linda Reynolds seem just enamored of?
They're fun. They're interesting.
See, you do know. All right, how about Alicia Keys? Two more players, Alicia Keys and Mariah Carey. Let's start with Alicia Keys. Could she ascend to a level of Whitney, or is her day done?
I think she's great, personally. She's great, she's huge,
She's
but her
done
biggest
acting,
sales
she's been
days,
in movies
that's true.
too.
Her biggest sales days, I think, are behind her, though.
Why?
It's just, again, things have changed. She was big, and when did that Songs Name Minor came out? When? 2002?
Yeah.
10 years later, she's not going to have a hit that big again.
How about Miss Mariah Carey? For a while, she was.
I think she's peaked.
Thanks.
I don't think she'll be back to where she. Musically, yes.
Interesting. Why?
Yeah, music has changed. Her producers have changed, and she's been here for a long time. And a lot of the people who know her and the kids growing up, they're like, Mariah Carey.
So she's leveled off.
Exactly.
Which is why those superstars are different. They have a longer window, right? Every star has a window. The big stars have a long shelf life. Correct?
And some of that is their manufacture, too. Some of them create their own shelf lives. Madonna, for example, has created a really long career. And, there's no saying Beyonce can't do that same thing that Madonna did.
But you have to have talent, because if you have a long career and you're putting out junk, at some point the audience will respond to that and tell you it's not the same way anymore.
You have to be smart about it.
And to some degree, Whitney was hitting that point where she couldn't do it anymore, and the audience started saying, it's not the same Whitney.
It happens.
Right?
It does happen to everyone.
Your voice after a
right,
while.
and she lost her voice clearly, and people started to tolerate, okay, this is a new Whitney, and that was difficult to watch that and not seeing her hit those high notes anymore.
And Mary J's another one people could throw into that, but Mary J's been on for a long time, and I think she's peaked
I
too.
forgot about her too, Mary J. We got to talk about her. All right. Another break, folks. Going to come back and talk to psychologist Darlene Powell-Garlington about coping strategies for dealing with anxiety and depression, and why celebrities seem so vulnerable to self-medicating. We're online, folks, 24/7, ctnow.com/stand. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, too.